Let me reread the sentence. To who do Oswald and myself report when we get to school? Ask the girl whose clothes seem like they came from another century. Myself needs to be changed to I, correct? All right, what else needed to be done? Century is not spelled correct. Okay. Where do I need to move them to?
To school.
To school. Quotation marks, okay.
And then a question mark to
After school.
yeah.
Question mark after school.
And then change the question mark at the end to a period.
Take off the question mark at the end. Change it to a period.
Would you take off that little thing on whose?
Yes, and what do I need to do with that?
Add an E.
And an E.
Close is spelled wrong.
Close is misspelled. Okay. There's one more thing that needs to be shifted. Say it. Or guess.
What is that after the school?
After school, it's a question mark, close quote. You're not going to capitalize asked, if that's what you're thinking, because it's the end punctuation. Normally you would if it were another sentence, but because it's a quoted material, it's not going to close out the sentence. What actually closes out the sentence is ask the girl.
There's something after report.
After report?
Yeah, because of the report one.
Do you move the two?
Report to.
Yeah, report to.
We leave the two where it is because it is a prepositional phrase. And I'll go over that here in just a minute.
Is it like a comma or like a punctuation?
No, it's a letter missing on a word, and it's a word usage.
Oh, see?
Who to whom.
I'm focused.
Okay? Who to whom. When you have to who, it's not going to ever be that. It will always be to whom. Do you understand? Okay? All right, so we have a couple things that we need to do. As you all know, I'm going to ask you to find the subject and the verb. But in order to do that with a question, you need to flip the sentence and make it a statement. If you need to remove anything, you can do that, but it needs to be identified in the statement, in the sentence, as it sits. Do you understand? But in order to find the subject and the verb, let's make this question a statement. And we're going to do directly just within the quotation marks at this point in time. Okay? So tell me who or what am I talking about? Make it a statement first. Let's make it a statement first. How do we do that? Go ahead, you're right.
Wouldn't the girl and then everything after that go first and then asked and then the question?
You can, but we're just specifically working within the quotation marks.
Oh.
Okay? We're only working within the quotation marks. Make the stuff that's in the quotation marks a statement. You're not asking a question when you make a statement.
So like change the whole sentence, but not like don't make it a question?
Correct.
Much?
Just the stuff that's in the quotation marks.
would you take out to whom do and just put Oswald and I and put will report?
You can take and move do at the end of I, can you not? Oswald and I do report. Yes. Report what?
To school.
To school when we get to school, right?
Yeah.
But that to whom we don't necessarily need when we make a statement, right? Okay, so that to whom is not a vital part of the statement, but it is vital for the question, correct? Okay. Who or what am I talking about then? Oswald and I. Very good. What is and?
A conjunction.
Very good. A conjunction. What do Oswald and I? What about Oswald and I?
Report.
Report. What about the other verb? Oswald and I do report. Okay. Now, I said to whom is not a vital part of this. What is to and what is whom? To is going to be one of two parts of speech. It's either going to be an infinitive or it's going to be a preposition. Which one is it? Preposition. To whom, because whom is a pronoun, is it not? It's talking about a person, right? So we have to as your preposition, and whom is your object of the preposition, right? Okay. Okay. Do I have a second verb within that sentence, within the quotation materials? Where's my second verb?
One.
Not when. Get. Where's my subject for get? We. Do I have a prepositional phrase? To school. And you know what I'm going to ask for in the prepositional phrase. Label them for me. What is to? The preposition. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. All right, so to is going to be the preposition. What is school? Object of the object of what? Object of the preposition. What? You all are. I know you all are silently saying this in your head. Are you not? Yes. What about when? Do I have two subjects and two verbs within that quoted material? I do. Do I not? When you have two subjects, two verbs, and you use a word to connect them, what is that called? Starts with a C. A conjunction. Do I have a conjunction in there? Connecting two subjects, two verbs. And what is that conjunction? When. Making that not a coordinating conjunction, but a subordinate conjunction. Very good. So now do I have a subordinate clause? I do I not? And where does it begin and where does it end? Where does the subordinate clause begin? Doesn't it begin at the conjunction, guys? Does it? Yeah. And does it end at the end of the quote? Yeah. Okay. So you have your first subordinate conjunction, subordinate clause, okay? Are we good there? We understand this stuff, yes? Can I move when we get to school? To whom do Oswald and I report? Yes, and it still works, right? So I know I have a legit subordinate conjunction. It's not connected to anything other than the main sentence, right? And you can maneuver it around, right? Remember that. That's going to be really important, okay? Now we have the material outside of the quote. We have asked the girl whose clothes seem like they came from another century. Who or what are we talking about? A girl. Now, before I go on to anything else there, let's knock out all of our verbs. Where are they? Asked. Next verb.
Seen.
Next verb.
Came.
Any others? Okay. Let's knock out all of prepositional phrases.
Will like and can be one.
No, because you're not going to have a verb within a prepositional phrase.
From center.
What is from? What is from? What is this in the bracket? A preposition. Where's my object? Century. What kind of century? Which one? Adjective, right? Okay. All right, so now let's go find the subjects for those verbs that we've marked. What about seemed? What seemed? The clothes seemed, right? I don't want to underline that. What about came? Who came? They came. Okay. What kind of girl? Which one? The article adjective, right? Okay. Now, I told you like is not going to be a preposition. Why? Because it has a verb, so it's not going to be a preposition. But like actually acts as a conjunction. So what kind of conjunction will this be? Is it a coordinating conjunction? Is it part of the fanboys? For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so? No. What kind of conjunction will it be then? A subordinate conjunction. Do I have a subordinate clause then? I do I not? And it begins with like, does it not? And it ends at the period, correct? Okay. One subordinate conjunction knocked out. Now, what about whose? What is whose related to? Is it connected to another word within the sentence? Whose clothes? The girl's clothes. Whose is called a relative pronoun. We're going to take notes over this today. Here's where the notes are going to come into place. Write this down, please. A relative pronoun begins a subordinate clause and must have an antecedent. What is an antecedent? Look at your notes from yesterday.
An agreement.
Hmm?
An agreement
Refers to the noun.
It's the noun that it refers to, right? That's the noun, right? So what's the noun for whose? What's who's talking about? The girl. The girl's the noun, is it not? Yeah. So does it have an antecedent? Yes. And it is a relative pronoun that begins yet another subordinate clause. So there's a subordinate clause within a subordinate clause, is there not? Yeah, there is. Here are your 10 relative pronouns. Make sure I don't miss them. There are only 10 of them, and they all start with the WH except for one. Okay? Here's your 10. We have who. Write these down, please. And whom. And we have whoever. And whomever. And we have, I'm going to have to go smaller here, which, and we have whichever, and we have whose, and we have what, and whatever. And then our final one is that. Okay? Those are the 10. They will all have an antecedent, which is the noun in which it refers to, right? It's a pronoun, okay? And it begins a subordinate clause. So we have here, and over whose, you have relative pronoun that begins the subordinate clause, okay? So we have yet a third subordinate clause. Do you see it? Does it make sense? Is it coming clearer? A little bit? There's a lot of information going on in here, right? Okay. Easiest way that I'm finding to break this down with you guys is to find the verbs. Am I right? Find your verbs, then you can find your subjects, then you can find your prepositional phrases, and then those other pieces that are really difficult to find, like our relative pronouns and our subordinate conjunctions. If you can answer, does it have two subjects, two verbs? You have a word in there connecting them. You know you probably have a subordinate conjunction or a conjunction of some form, correct? Okay. Can I maneuver this around? They came from another century. I don't know. I don't like that. This is a conjunction, though. I do know that. They came from another century. The girl whose clothes seemed, that one's going to be really hard to move, is it not? That one's going to be really hard to move. But it is a conjunction. Okay? You understand? Yeah? All right, good. Let's go ahead and we're going to shift gears now. Let's go ahead and get our books open. We're going to go directly into our story. You ready for that? Give us a break from grammar for a little bit. Yeah? Listen to our story for a little bit. We're going to give our brains a minute. We're going to escape from here. Open this up. My library. And we're going to listen to the first of all. Listen now. I can't remember where we were. I think it should mark it. I think we were talking about that major scene from... or that major setup, right? About the people and what was going on in the community. Am I correct? Is that where we were? That major paragraph? Let me look at it. I know, this is tough. Do you guys need to stand and stretch for a minute? I can let you do that if you need to. A lot of us are yawning. All right, so we have, let's go back over that scene really quick. It's been a couple days since we've looked at this. It's been too long. Let me find it. What's happening in the story? Talk to me really quick. What's going on in the story? Do we know what happened with John Proctor and Abigail?
Yeah.
Okay, what's going on with John Proctor and Abigail? Let's talk about that.
They have relations.
They have relations. They got hooked up. And John Proctor is being blamed for stuff, right? Or he's got this guilt, right? Being blamed for stuff. Well, he's not really being blamed for stuff. He's hiding stuff. Let's put it that way. Okay? What's going on with Betty and the girls, the other girls? We have Betty. We have Ruth. What's happening with those girls?
They're all sick.
They're sick.
They're sick. And nobody can figure out what's wrong with them, right? What else is going on? What's going on with, let me see what else. Let me think. I'm asking stuff out of my brain and not even stopping to think and get questions answered. All right, what's going on with Mr. Hale? He is the preacher that Putnam brought in, right? Or not Putnam, Paris brought in. And who is he? What's he there for?
See if the devil at work or whatever.
Yeah, see if the devil's at work. And he's there to excise the devil out of the community, correct?
Yeah.
And to excise and to find the witches, right? Yes, he's come from outside the community. What is Mrs. Putnam's problem? She had the children who died. What is her problem? She's crazy. She's lost way too many babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ruth is her only living child, yes? Do you kind of feel bad for her? I do. Having children, I feel bad for her a little bit. Okay. What is Putnam's problem with Paris? I know, they're doing surgery outside on the grounds. What is Putnam's problem with Paris? He has a grudge. He's holding a grudge. Why does he have a grudge?
Because he had a candidate for the reverend position, didn't
Yes, he had a candidate for the reverend position and they didn't get it. And who runs the community? Who does all the laws and stuff? The reverend. It's a theological society, correct? God is in charge and man's servants, who is the leader of the church, is now in charge, right? Okay. I'm trying to think of anything else that we need to go through. Mary Warren is the servant of Proctor. John Proctor has given Abigail a new insight into what it is to be a living individual. Rebecca, nurse. Older woman, younger woman? Rebecca, nurse. Older or younger? Older. She's a grandmother, many, many times removed, right? She thinks these girls are faking it, doesn't she? She's like, there's nothing wrong with them, right? Okay. What's happening in 1950s that affects why this is being written? Communism.
Cold War.
Modern witch hunt, right? Which then relates back to the story, correct? All right. I think I am where I need to be. Yes, I am. We read that whole thing on women's fashions. Did we finish that whole paragraph? I had you guys go through all of that. Did we finish all of it? Did we talk about women's fashions of the time, hypocrisy, Russian attitude towards women in America being lascivious? Did we talk about any of that? I feel like we did. Coming into Salem now, Reverend Hale conceived of himself much as a young doctor on his first call. His painfully acquired armory of symptoms, catchwords, and diagnostic procedures is now to be put to use at last. The road from Beverly is unusually busy this morning, and he has passed 100 rumors that make him smile at the ignorance of the yeomanry, simpleton, in this most precise science. He feels himself allied with the best minds of Europe's kings, philosophers, scientists, and ecclesiastics of all churches. His goal is light and goodness and in preservation, and he knows the exaltation of the blessed, whose intelligence, sharpened by minute examinations of enormous tracts, is finally called upon to face what may be bloody fight with the fiend himself. Does he feel like he's well prepared to come in to Salem and excise the witches? Yes. Okay. All right. Are we good where we need to be? Okay, let's go for it. We are on page 1230. We are beginning with hail. Remember, this is a practice in skimming, because you're not going to get every little part, are you? Okay?
You again. Why, these books are heavy. They must be. They are weighted with authority. Well, you do come prepared. We shall need hard study if it comes to tracking down the old boy. You cannot be Rebecca Nurse.
I am, sir. Do you know me?
It's strange how I know you. But I suppose you look as such a good soul should. We have all heard of your great charities in Beverly.
Do you know this gentleman, Mr. Thomas Putnam, and his good wife, Anne?
No, Mr. Hale. I respect such distinguished company, sir.
It does not seem to help us today, Mr. Hale. We look to you to come to our house and save our child.
Your child ails too.
Her soul seems flown away. She sleeps, and yet she walks.
She cannot eat. Cannot eat. Do you men have afflicted children?
No, these are farmers. Giles, Corey, and John Proctor.
We don't believe in witches.
I never spoke on witches one way or the other. Will you come, Giles?
No, John, I think not. I have some few queer questions of my own to ask this fella.
I've heard you be a sensible man, Mr. Hale. I hope you leave some of it in Salem. Mr. Hale, will you look at my daughter, sir? She is here. She's trying to leap out the window. We discovered her this morning on the high road, waving her arms, as though she'd fly.
Tries to fly.
She cannot bear to hear the Lord's name, Mr. Hale. That's a sure sign of witchcraft afloat.
No. Let me instruct you. We cannot look to superstition in this. The devil is precise. The marks of his presence are definite as stone, and I must tell you all that I shall not proceed unless you are prepared to believe me if I should find no bruise of hell upon her.
'Tis agreed, sir. 'Tis agreed. We will abide by your judgment.
Good then. Now, sir, what were your first warning of the strangeness?
Why, sir, I discovered my daughter Betty, Abigail, my niece, and 10 or 12 of the other girls dancing in the forest last night.
You permit dancing?
No, it was secret.
Mr. Periswade has knowledge of conjuring, sir.
We cannot be sure of that, Goody Ann.
I know it, sir. I sent my child. She should learn from Tituba who murdered her sisters.
Goody Ann, you sent a child to conjure up the dead.
Let God blame me, not you. Not you, Rebecca. I'll not have you judging me anymore. Is it a natural work to lose 7 children before they live a day?
7 dead in childbirth. Have no fear now. We shall find the devil out if he has come among us, and I mean to crush him utterly if he has shown his face.
Will it hurt the child, sir?
I cannot tell. If she is truly in the devil's grip, we may have to rip and tear to get her free.
I think I'll go then. I'm too old for this. Why, Rebecca, we may open up the boil of all our troubles today.
Let us hope for that. I go to God for you, sir.
I hope you do not mean we go to Satan here.
I wish I knew. I only wish I knew. Come, Mr. Hale, let's get on.
Now, mark me. If the devil is in her, you will witness some frightful wonders in this room, so please do keep your wits about you. Mr. Putnam, stand close in case she flies. Now, Betty, dear, will you sit up? Can you hear me? I'm John Hale, minister.
Now, there's a big jump. We're going to look at old Giles, that little paragraph right there, and then we'll pick up exactly where it is here on the next paragraph over, because you guys, many of you are looking at it probably going, wait, I got lost, right? Okay, and it's because there's a big jump, all right? So we have Mr. Giles. Old Giles must be spoken for, if only because of his fate was to be so remarkable and so different from that of all the others. He was in his early 80s at this time and was the most comical hero in the history. No man has ever been blamed for so much. If a cow was missed, the first thought was to look for her around Corey's house. A fire blazing up at night brought suspicion of arson to his door. He didn't give a hoot for public opinion, and only in his last years, after he had married Martha, did he bother much with the church. That she stopped his prayer is very probable, but he forgot to say that he'd only recently learned any prayers, and it didn't take much to make him stumble over them. He was a crank and a nuisance, but withal a deeply innocent and brave man. In court, once he was asked if it were true that he had been frightened by the strange behavior of a hog, and then he said he knew it to be the devil in an animal shape. What frightened you, he was asked. He forgot everything but the word frightened, and instantly replied, I do not know that I ever spoke that word in my life. Okay, so there's a little bit about Mr. Giles Corey. He is not one to necessarily go with this topic. And remember, he's one of the only that were pressed to death. He is the only that was pressed to death. Okay, for being a witch. And so he was blamed probably because of his flippant attitude about things. And the fact that he just started going to church in his old age. All right. Wasn't really connected with anything or anyone. And he's kind of the comical aspect of this whole thing. So Hale at the bottom of 1232 says, the stoppage of a prayer. That is strange. I'll speak further on that with you, because his wife has stopped his prayer, basically, is what he's saying. Giles said, I'm not saying she's touched the devil now, but I'll admire to know what books she reads and why she hides them. She'll not answer me, you see. And Hale says, I will discover it. To all he says, now mark me, if the devil is in her, you will witness some frightful wonders in this room. Okay? So that's where we'll pick up tomorrow, and that'll be where the audible is going to pick up tomorrow. Okay? Sound good? Have a good day, guys. Thank you.
This morning, I didn't miss Bond. Emailed me, and I had to go take